Welcome back to Voices in Mystery. I'm your host, Nancy Carlson. With me now is a friend of the program. This is Jeanne Dams, and Jeanne's been on several times before. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Jeanne is an Indiana author, comes from the South Bend area. Is
All
that
my
correct?
life.
All your life. And one of your two series takes place in the South Bend area. So
Yes.
let's talk about that one first. A Swedish immigrant is in the working class, is a cleaning lady or a maid or something.
She's a maid. She's the head housemaid. She's very proud of
The
that.
head housemaid in a mansion that is actually a real mansion in
Yes.
South Bend.
Yes. Tippecanoe Place was the home of Clement Studebaker, who was the president of what was not then the Studebaker Corporation. It was the Studebaker Wagon and Carriage Factory in the time that I'm writing about in the early 1900s.
So this family was the first family, kind of a royalty of South Bend. Is that fair to say?
Clem Studebaker was one of two claimants for the title of King of South Bend. The other was James Oliver, who was a Scotsman who made plows.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a theory that Tippecanoe Place had no electricity until, I haven't been able to discover when, but for many years. And the theory is that because James Oliver owned the electric company and Clem Studebaker owned the gas works, you see.
Oh.
That might be why.
There was some competition among the royal
Quite
families.
a little bit, yes.
Now, what sort of woman is Hilda, and is she an amateur sleuth?
She is certainly an amateur sleuth. She is Swedish. She is stubborn and opinionated. She is also, when the series begins, 19. So she knows everything, of course. If I remember when I was 19, and I've never known so much since. She is very pretty. She had to be. A housemaid had to be pretty back in those days. She's very pretty, and I like her very much.
So the dead bodies that appear in murder mysteries, do they happen in the Studebaker home?
There has never been one in the Studebaker home. The first one was in sort of underneath a lilac hedge that separated their home from the one next door.
But she, through her cleverness, solves the mysteries.
Of course, of course.
And there's a class difference between the servants and the Studebakers themselves?
I've been very interested in exploring the class problems in that series and the problems faced by immigrants. I've found out a lot about the immigrant families in South Bend during research for these books, and it's fascinating to me, the hierarchies of the immigrants. In South Bend, the Poles were at the very bottom of the heap. The Irish only a step better. They drink, you know. And they're supposed to be they're supposed to be idle layabouts, drunken layabouts. The Swedes, on the other hand, were supposed to be quite industrious and sober. I told a Swede that one time, and he said, "You never saw a Swede on a cold winter's night, did you?" And in the most recent book of that series, Hilda has married her boyfriend, Patrick Kavanagh. And oh my, the ructions, because he's an Irish Catholic, and the two families don't like each other very much. And he is now many steps up the social ladder because his uncle, for whom he works, is a very prominent tradesman in South Bend. And so Hilda doesn't belong now in either class.
Oh.
She doesn't fit in with her old servant friends. And the ladies of the town look down their noses at her because, as far as they're concerned, she's still a housemaid. So the poor woman has to fight to find a niche in life. But she's a fighter, so she'll manage.
You must have fun doing research for those books because they're in your backyard.
Yes, yes. That's why I started the series. I thought the research would be so much easier than the English books. But when I initially thought about it, I hadn't thought about making them historical. And every time I'm sitting in front of a microfilm reader, having forgotten my reading glasses, and looking at this thing through the bottom of my bifocals and getting a crick in the neck, I remember about the easier research part.
Let's talk about the Dorothy Martin series. This takes place in England.
Yes.
Where?
In a fictional town somewhere sort of in Kent, Sussex-ish, in the southeast of England somewhere.
And Dorothy, describe her.
Dorothy is an American expat. She and her husband had planned to move to England when he retired, but he died a few months short of retirement, and with all the plans already made and her mind in chaos, she decided it was easier to go through with the plans. She moves to England by herself and is trying to make a new life for herself as a widow in a country that she knows and loves well, but again, where she doesn't quite belong.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess this idea of fitting in is somehow important to all my books. I hadn't thought of that until just this minute.
Do you share your work before it's published with your friends or your writing partners so that they help you write?
I have a long-standing writers group. Barbara D'Amato and Mark Zubro and I have been a writing group forever. And we read each other's work. In fact, we don't read it aloud to them. Somebody else reads it and criticize it, and it has been invaluable. They are wonderful writing partners.
So you're not shy or sensitive about criticism?
No, because we never criticize each other, just what we've written. And I know that we're all doing it from a professional standpoint and to make the books better. So what's not to like? In fact, the three of us have written a book together. Did you know?
Tell me about that.
It's not like anything any of us usually write. It's a thriller called Foolproof. And we had hoped to have it published early this year because it is about a particularly nasty presidential election.
Oh, really? I know of one of them.
And the electronic theft thereof.
Oh.
So we hope it'll be out. It's been bought by Tor, and we hope it'll be out next year.
And is it problems at the polls? Is that where the corruption is?
The corruption is being engineered from very high up indeed.
Oh. It is too bad it didn't come out in '08, but it still sounds
is.
wonderful. The name of that is Foolproof.
Well, that's our title. Publishers do what they want with titles.
So you don't know what they'll come up with?
We don't know. We're hoping. They haven't said that they don't like the title, so we're hoping that's going to be
But
the
they've
name of it.
accepted it for publication.
They have accepted it, and it's going to have all three of our names on the cover, as far as we know now.
That's great. What about mystery groups that are national or regional organizations? Do you belong to any of those?
I belong to both MWA and Sisters in Crime. In fact, I was an officer of the Midwest chapter. I was president of the Midwest chapter for a while of MWA, and I still edit their newsletter, which is called Clues. So I put it, Clues is waiting for me at this very moment in my computer at home. It ought to be done for November, but it's not, but I'll get there.
I'd like to thank you so much for being on the program. You've been listening to Jeanne Dams, who's the author of 2 series and 1 collaboration. The 2 series are the Dorothy Martin series, which takes place in England, an expat who lives in England, and the Hilda Johansson, do you say the
Johansson.
Johansson series, which takes place in Jeanne's town, South Bend, Indiana. The Foolproof, or whatever it will be called, with Barb D'Amato and Mark Zubro, will be out in '09. Please look for them on your bookshelf. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you.